Okay, Unit 9, Lecture 2, okay, American home front during World War II. The success in World War II required total commitment of America's resources. Contributions to the war effort came from all segments of society, all right, both American public schools and American mass media promoted or encouraged nationalism or a strong feeling of patriotism during World War II. On the home front, the federal government unfairly forced most Japanese Americans to live in internment camps after the war, which I'll come back to later. I don't know why I put that right there. Anyhow, the United States government and American industry forged or put together a close working relationship to use resources effectively. First, the federal government used rationing. All right, each American family received a monthly allowance of such essential items as sugar, meat, and gasoline. Second, the Roosevelt administration used war bonds and the federal income tax to finance the war. Bonds are government IOUs. We've talked about that, are repaid with interest, right? And the income tax was raised to pay for the war, all right? In short, when the federal government sold war bonds, it was borrowing money from the people to finance the war. Third, American corporations retooled from peacetime to wartime production. For example, General Motors converted their auto industry, auto assembly plants to factories that manufactured tanks, okay? Citizens volunteered in support of the war effort. In addition, more women and minorities entered the labor force as men entered the armed forces. Women entered into previously male job roles. They increasingly participated in the workforce to replace men who were serving in the armed forces. Rosie the Riveter up here. Remember that picture? Remember the name. Rosie the Riveter. I don't think I put it on your whiteboard. Became a symbol of the American working woman who traded housework for factory work during World War II. Many women also joined the armed forces and participated in non-combat military roles. And we talk about the auxiliary groups, the WACs and the WAVES and all that in class. African Americans struggled to obtain desegregation of the armed forces and discriminatory hiring practices, meaning they're not hired in the civilian workforce because of their race. A. Philip Randolph is president of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters and an African American, fought against job discrimination. Randolph planned a giant march on Washington for July 1941 to demand equal hiring in defense jobs and the right to fight in the military. FDR met with Randolph and made a deal. Roosevelt issued Executive Order 8802, which prohibited racial discrimination in war industries, although not in the armed forces. All right. In return, Randolph agreed to cancel his march. During World War II, African Americans migrated to cities in search of jobs and war plans. Throughout the war, African American leaders campaigned for victory abroad and equality at home. We'll call it a double V. All right. Fighting a war on two fronts, both Europe and the Pacific, required the United States to add tens of thousands of servicemen to the American Armed Forces. So in 1940, Roosevelt's request, Congress passed the Selective Training and Service Act. This law established the first peacetime draft in American history. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Selective Service or Draft Law required all men between ages 18 and 45 to sign up for military service. This gave the United States government a large pool of men from which to draw in order to meet the personnel needs of the military during World War II. Okay, I'm going to stop at 2A there. I'm going to pick up with 2B with internment.